Everybody can hear you. And now you're on screen.
Boom.
Hey.
Did it. Nonprofits.
I'm the king of everything.
You're not the king of everything. So this is Nonprofits.
This is.
My name is Stephen Campbell.
I'm Franqi French.
And we are starting a podcast that I'm real pumped about, where we are going to work out material on different social issues and bring on some incredible nonprofits that are making an impact in the world and talk to them about those social issues, work those premises through with them, learn a little bit about the work that they're doing. So yeah, that's the premise. You guys are here for episode 1.
This is literally moment 1. We're starting the podcast right now. We just start right now.
Now, as it honestly, we're only going to record the parts where Franqi talks, because I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy. How you doing over there, Franqi?
Don't steal my shtick, okay, Stephen? I'm the one that ruins your life. You can't ruin. Don't 8 Mile me. Okay?
I was just gonna say, this is my Eminem moment where I tell you that I did grow up in a trailer park and
right
material.
Right, you do have a friend named Cheddar Bob that shot himself in the leg with his own gun. Like, don't come in here at me like that. But I'm doing great. I've been like hanging out in quarantine and auditioning for a lot of TV shows. I'm hoping that I send enough to where they're just like, oh my God, put her on something so she could stop sending us these awful tapes.
Yeah, I do that with the Vietnamese restaurant down the street, that I keep telling them that they didn't send me an order that I wanted. And then eventually they just send you the order, so you stop calling.
That's called stealing, Stephen. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but that's what that is.
We just have different goals, and I just don't shit on mine, huh?
That seems fair. I'm very excited for this podcast. I've been telling people, anyone that would listen, and some people that didn't want to listen, I told them about this, and I'm just excited. Thank you, Comedy Hub, right?
Shout out to Comedy Hub. Shout out to Avenues for Justice, is who we'll be chatting with.
Oh, I see. I love how you stole my thunder. That's where I was going with it. Thank you, white person. I love how you did that. I feel like I'm more dedicated because I have the Avenues for Justice literally on my back.
True. Yeah. You carrying them on the back. I'm gonna get canceled by these few amount of viewers for taking the voice of a black lady. Oh man, here I go.
Yeah, wow, you're getting canceled by your own voice. Even your voice is more progressive than you. It's like, you know what? Let's strangle him from the inside. Thank you, Stephen's voice.
I don't think that's so. I kind of want to just start going into it a little bit as far as like what we're trying to work out. So what we're doing, Avenues for Justice helps youth that have been put into incarceration and reduces recidivism, right? So
what is recidivism, Stephen, for anyone watching that may not know that very technical term?
Cool. Recidivism is your rate of going back into incarceration, right? So I believe that the average.
Can we pause on that for a second? Because I feel like a lot of people may have understandings around why people go back to prison once they come home. And I think oftentimes, just the casual observer is like, oh, well, they went back because they couldn't, maintain proper order in a polite society. And that's not always the case. A lot of times these kids come home, and adults too, but specifically we're talking about teens because that's who Avenue for Justice works with. But they come home and they don't have the tools or the means to live like, a productive member of society. And so they are likely to reoffend because of those shortcomings within our society that we've built. So just, you got to look at it from that, with that mindset and from that perspective. I think I'm right, but we'll have the guys from there come on and kind of go more into that.
Yeah, we'll show you our very base knowledge of what we're talking about. And then that's why we bring in these nonprofit leaders that have a lot more expertise in it. I think that the rate that Wes was saying, that it's somewhere in the neighborhood of like 60% recidivism, that people that go in very often go back at like a 60% rate, but Avenues for Justice works with these guys and their recidivism rate is at like 5%.
Yeah.
Which is dope, which is like really crazy. Because I think about like where I grew up is an area that really enjoys heroin. Like, mwah, like wine country.
Yeah.
Like wine country is to Napa what heroin country is to Simi Valley.
Let's call it heroin hallway because it's got a better
better
alliteration.
And so I got very lucky that like I was forced to go to college, right? My parents were just like, yo, you're the fuck out of the house if you don't go to college. And if I would have stayed, like I know that my trajectory, because of everybody else's trajectory in the city, would have been to get hooked and do all that fun stuff. And so it is a thing that when you are in an environment that
nature versus nurture.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And so kind of the premise that I'm working on right now, and it's, boy, is it a premise, but is the idea that I had a lot of people that I was close to die, right? And whenever
from heroin,
drugs, gangs,
or just like a general from the streets. Okay,
yeah, right. Just some easy street living. And I remember being in college when the bulk of them were dying and having this girl come up to me and just be like, hey, I know how it feels. My cat passed away a couple weeks ago. And so I get it. And I was just like, no,
not,
don't.
Yeah.
No, you fucking don't. And I had a very similar thought during quarantine that I'm in a small New York apartment, and the thought entered my head of like, oh my God, it's like being in a fucking prison cell.
I know what my ancestors went through. Like, I feel you on that. That's not, you're not out of bounds with that. You know what I mean? We were in the house, like literally I didn't leave my house for like 3 months straight. I'm like 12 years a slave. I get it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Right. But it was like, I get prison now because all they have is a smart TV and a Seamless app where they can order Szechuan chicken at the click of a button. I get it.
That's it. Just the basic essentials, just the basic.
Right. All you have is your own bed, and you can make sandwiches whenever you want, and a rooftop when I'm feeling kind of down.
And that's barely surviving.
And in my head, I was like, it's like a prison cell. Like I caught myself, and I was like, you fucking asshole. Like that is not like nowhere close. And I wanted to kind of like work that idea out as like, there are a lot of causes that it's hard to empathize because you can't, right? And you hear it a lot of times when white people are talking about Black issues, right? Where very often.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. No. So how much time do you have for me to tell you about Black issues?
Oh my God, so much time, please. Because my dream of you getting canceled will come to life. Okay, go ahead, tell me.
So when you're Black, but it is this thing of like, it's this balancing act of when do I sit back and shut the fuck up?
Right.
When do I engage in the conversation? And it's something that I've always felt with incarceration, that it's like, no, I absolutely have no idea what it is. But let me tell you how I think it might be. Right?
I went to jail for a week.
Oh yeah, what, for just jail? You were just waiting for your court?
Do you want to know what happened?
Yeah, please.
So I was, let me think, how old? I think I had just turned like 18, or maybe I was 19, right? And my best friend in the whole world, I'm not going to say her name, but she stabbed her mom almost to death, right? Oh. And came to where I was living and was like, and covered in blood. So I'm like, oh my God, what happened? She wouldn't tell me what happened. So I'm like, okay, well, of course, I need to hide you, right? Right? Because that's what you do when you're an idiot kid and your friend shows up covered in blood, right?
Of course.
So, but she's got a car and money and I'm like, okay, did you murder someone? And she's like, I don't know. So long story short, I find out that her and her mom had a very tumultuous relationship. This is the suburbs, okay? I grew up in white America. Like I grew up how Steven's face looks like if, do you know who my dad is, was a person, right? Let's just say that. I grew up with those fucks, right? With those people, that's who I grew up with. And she was actually, spoiler alert, you won't believe this was another Black girl. Right?
There were two of you?
We were the only two. But when I said this girl stabbed her mom, you immediately pictured like Jennifer, didn't you? No.
I did. Yeah, that's a very Jennifer Ashley move.
Because, Big Mom was like, knife, hold a second. And she's going to pull out a razor and cut you clean. So long story short, I took her stolen car because she stabbed her mom, stole her mom's car, stole her mom some money from her mom, and went on the run. Her mom did not die. Let me say that. Her mom is alive and well. I've spent time with her mom actually recently, and she's a wonderful, wonderful woman now. Anyway, I took the car to 7-Eleven because I needed a pack of cigarettes. I no longer smoke cigarettes, but I needed a pack of cigarettes. I drove to 7-Eleven, and the cop was like, asked me if I was her. And I was like, nope. And I tried to get in the car and pull out. And they were like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and take you to jail. They basically held me in jail for 7 days until I either snitched on her or they found her. And they found her 7 days later. I did not break because snitches get stitches. Now, as a fully formed adult, no, I would not hide my friend that showed up covered from head to toe in blood. Clearly, that's not a good move. But, I was in jail for 7 days, and it's just like how you imagine, horrific. There were maggots in my soup, and I don't mean that in a fun way. There were like actual moving, living, breathing bugs.
Can I stop you there? What's the fun way to have maggots in your soup?
Well, remember the movie Lost Boys when he made the guy think that his noodles were maggots, and he was like, "Oh." That is a fun way to have maggots in your soup. That's a fun way. Haha, you didn't think I'd have an answer for that.
No, I didn't. So the other part of the joke where I'd like to go and where I think I have a little bit more legs on it is the rehabilitation process after incarceration, right? That was something that, like, while you don't have the ability to empathize with somebody all the way, if you can take what the 1/100th is of that event and then extrapolate, you can maybe not empathize completely, but still have feel for that person because they've had the
absolutely
100x version of it.
Experiences. So I think that if you can connect with me on a human level, you can have empathy. You don't may not know, but yeah, I believe in empathy. Go ahead. Sorry.
So when I was like a month and a half into lockdown, and I was on the roof, and I was standing there in my sweats and pajamas, which I would wear for 72-hour periods. And
that's all? Lightweight. Go ahead.
I have 2 rotations.
Okay, and so now we're talking.
And so my neighbor comes upstairs and he was like, yo, we made too much dinner. You should come down to dinner. And at that point, I had realized that my ability, my social computer had been so inundated with new information on how to interact with people. Everybody is a 6-foot bioweapon. I don't want to even, I just don't want any sort of human interaction. But at the same time, I was like, I need human interaction. And so I just stared at him for what I can only describe as way too long, like with no response, just kind of like, oh shit. And I was just like running through my head. I was like, this, dinner. What do you say?
The worst part is as you're locked in that moment, like you said, you're just turning it over in your mind. and the time is ticking by longer, so you're just standing there looking weird for longer.
Very much so. And so all of a sudden, like something comes out of instinct. It's like, what can I bring? And he's like, nothing. When dinner's ready, I was like, oh my God, that was my buffer. I needed to
Right, I needed a thing,
deal with this guy. And so I was like, okay, let me get a cup. And he was like, you don't need to get a cup. I'll get a cup because like I don't like.
So you brought your own cup to this very lovely person's house?
Well, he's my upstairs neighbor, right? And so like I live in this walk-up.
Also white. Please say he's white.
He was Puerto Rican.
Oh, oh God, you look so racist. I love it. That's hilarious.
I was hoping it wouldn't be until now, but it's so. I go downstairs and I'm sitting in my kitchen and I'm wearing my sweats and I was like, you can't wear sweats to dinner, but there's already this like added thing that he's your neighbor and I've never been to a dinner at his place. And so like this guy knows that I live.
What was he wearing when he invited you?
The sweats. I was wearing those sweats.
Well, what was he wearing? What was your neighbor wearing when he invited?
He was wearing jeans, and that was the thing. And I was like,
Okay.
look at this hoity-toity fuck wearing jeans during.
Oh, look at neighbor boy. Okay, with your fancy schmancy Wrangler jeans.
I have a friend that she's been dressing up every day for work. Like she would go into the office because like psychologically it puts her in a place to work. But like.
Your friend's a sociopath. I don't know.
I think the first thing that I did was just burn my ties. I was going nuts during quarantine, right? And so I go down to my place and I stand in one place for probably 10 minutes, just like trying to dissect what I should do. Should I change my pants? He saw my sweats. What should I do? And I go, and so it takes me about 10 minutes to just grab a cup. And so I come up to his apartment and I just have the cup and I'm just,
love that.
And he's like, they're all sitting at the table. There's a wine glass filled and I just have my cup and I just put it down and he's got wipes on the table and they're eating ribs, but I thought that it was to show that I had cleaned my hands. So I didn't.
Look, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Pause. Are you telling me you thought the wet wipes were for you to like, this is my palm. This is me wiping. See the evidence of this now clean wet wipe that I have. Is that what you thought they wanted?
Well, when you say it like that, it sounds stupid.
Oh, that's you're such an idiot. I love it. Okay, keep going.
So I did this like Pontius Pilate shit, like where I was just cleaning my hands in front of him to be like, look, as clean as a whistle. And so then I quickly realized that was for after I ate the ribs. Yeah. And so now I'm sitting there understanding that, but clenching the ribs or clenching the wipe and eating the ribs with just one hand and just like kind of gnawing on it like
you're
this.
You're getting wet wipe juice onto your ribs.
100%. And I just smell wipes as I'm eating these delicious ass ribs. Very, very good. Puerto Rican ribs. Yes. And which I don't see color as we already talked about, but I not in ribs anyway. And so I
thought you bring in your own cup.
It was just empty the whole fucking time. It's just sitting there, an empty cup.
So what did you drink out of?
The wine glass that he had already filled for me. I also brought this like red plastic, like not like a solo cup, but just this red plastic cup that I have. And like, I thought that was okay for wine. Like
you should have left it. You should have been like, in my country of Caucasian, it is customary to bring a red cup in solidarity of my brethren, and you should have, like, this cup is now bestowed upon you. That
would have made more sense if I brought a red solo cup, and he was just because that is a little bit more it's whitey broy type situation.
That is part of call culture.
It is call cultured, and so I couldn't interact with them. Like I had made a rule in my head that I only watched COVID news once a week, and it was on Monday, and this was on a Wednesday. And so when they started talking about COVID, as everybody's apt to do, especially when the shit first started, they asked me something, and I said, "Oh, actually, I only talk about that once a week." And
you said in a social setting. Well, actually, I reserve all COVID convos. That's what I'm calling them now. I reserve them for Mondays because, oh my God, Mondays. Am I right? Like, ew.
So I I say all that to say that was the least not the least intense, but just like such a fraction of being incarcerated and being in the culture of incarceration and then coming out. And after that, I just started empathizing with that process of rehabilitation so much more, because I was just so unable to, with a low stress level, even affiliate with people, let alone like hold a regular conversation and just interact in like a dinner setting.
That's hilarious. That story is hilarious. And making that comparison between being in quarantine and being incarcerated definitely kind of gets that point across. It gets a couple of points across, right? I feel like we as Americans, even myself, I go through hardship, and things are difficult oftentimes based on who I am. At the same time, I am afforded a lot of privilege too, just being American, right? And it's things like that, like literally being in my house, I'm like, seriously, I completely get 12 years a slave. You know what I mean? Like, and then you having to like rehab after being in the house for 3 months, hilarious. Because we oftentimes don't even think of what another person may be going through. We don't have, the scope or the breadth of knowledge or experience to know what it's like to be in that little slice of not having full access to, but having most of your amenities and all of your needs satiated, right? At your will. You know what I mean? When you're incarcerated, it's, you have a time you get up, you have a time you shower, you have a time you eat, you have a time you know what I mean? Someone else is dictating everything to you, but we as Americans, we have our freedom, restricted and by mildly inconvenienced, and we lose our minds.
And think about how like everybody went wild. Like, remember the toilet paper takers? Those were maybe the worst people of all of COVID.
They were animals.
Because think about just think about the logistics of that. I live in Brooklyn where nobody has a car and people are cleaning out like 60 to 75 rolls of toilet paper. You're a fucking toilet Sherpa walking all the way down the street. And the whole time at no part are you just like, oh, maybe this is fucking stupid what I'm doing. But it is just like, there's example after example of people through quarantine, like losing it a little bit. And it was just this thing of like, I don't know how to tie it into a nice little bow for a joke, but it is this thing of like trying to write more in the space of let's empathize with other people's positions by giving very small examples of me not being able to handle much more minuscule positions. But yeah, I don't really know where it goes from there, but that's kind of what I'm working on right now.
I mean, it's fun and poignant and topical. So I like, you know what I mean, on a lot of different levels, you know what I mean? It's not just, making people think about incarceration among youth, youth and inner city youth in particular, but it's also making us think about the pandemic and how we've handled that. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of different layers and slices to it. So I think it's going to be fun to do on stage.
It is this thing that it was like, it's the first thing that everybody went through together.
Right. Universally, we went through it together on some level.
It's like, people used to do small talk about the weather. If you come to me with some bullshit ass small talk about the weather, just come on, talk about some of your hardships, talk about the struggles. You didn't like wrestle with your own self-identity or something.
Exactly. I saw earlier today something that sparked, because I've been trying to think, what kind of premise could I come up with? I haven't come up with a joke. Yours is far more fleshed out than mine is, but I think there's something in that, like I saw today that this is going to be a weird, deep pull, but I saw that Ricky Schroeder, that's right, you heard what I said, Ricky Schroeder of the 80s classic Silver Spoons.
Okay.
You don't know who Ricky Schroeder is? Please.
I don't.
Okay. All right.
Go on.
No, I'm not moving on. There's no way on any planet that I'm moving on. I'm calling you out is what's happening right now. Everyone watching, please also know this about Stephen Campbell. He doesn't know who Quincy Jones is. Okay, moving on. But I read earlier that, are you Googling Ricky Schroeder?
have done
back
that.
in the 80s, I think late 80s, early 90s, I can't remember, but back in the day, there was this show. It was a 30-minute sitcom that came on Saturday nights called Silver Spoons. Here we are, face to face, a couple of silver spoons. What? Hoping to find we're two of a kind. Okay, whatever. Yes, I remember every 80s sitcom TV show.
We'll address that later.
We can talk about it later. They also gave us Leonardo Dicaprio. He made a guest appearance on there back in the day. And that's, so thank you, Silver Spoons. But the lead, Ricky Schroeder, played this adorable young blonde kid, right? I should have known something was wrong with him because he looks exactly like the little blonde kid that told me to go back to Africa in kindergarten. We'll talk about it later. But he recently gave Kyle Rittenhouse, you heard what I said, the monster animal asshole that drove across state lines with an illegal gun to go mow down peaceful protesters, that piece of trash. He gave him $150,000 towards his $2 million bail to get him out because, he's just a young kid and deserves a shot, right? So I feel like the dichotomy between that and there's another young gentleman whose name escapes me, and I feel like an animal because of it, but he was, I'm looking up his name right now. He was-
the dude that got hit for stealing a backpack or whatever.
Yes!
Yeah.
Oh my God, yes! And went to jail and for 2 years.
Khalif Browder.
Yes, Khalif Browder. Thank you so much. Khalif Browder, this sweet baby went to jail for stealing a backpack for 2 years, right? And suffered so significantly while in there, he could not rebound. He could not make it back. And he committed suicide. He died by suicide, And no, okay, I will give you all that this is not funny. I have not said anything funny yet, but I really love showing. These are the kind of things that motivate me to write jokes. I'm going to take this picture and flip it around somehow in some way, especially leveraging what Avenues for Justice does for teens. If I'm not mistaken, I think the statistic is it takes $350,000 a year to keep a teen incarcerated. And what Avenues for Justice does for these kids in a year costs $5,000. You know what I mean? And so there's all of these numbers and money and just the blatant example of privilege and how different people from different demos are treated. I'm going to take that and make it into a joke. And we'll play me doing it on stage in like 2 weeks here. So if you're a Facebook watcher, you'll see it.
All right.
You think it's a tough reach?
I'll try to delve into it, but first, $2 million for Rittenhouse, and they spent $1.3 million or $1 million on Khalif, right? If you're saying $350,000 a year to keep somebody incarcerated. So Ricky Schroeder, but wasn't he in a band also?
No, sweet pea. Oh my God. Please get your life together. I don't know who raised you. I don't know what your sitch is, but I'm going to need you to get your shit together.
Okay. I knew about Rittenhouse and Khalif. Why does it matter that I don't know about this obscure ass 1980s sitcom?
You know what really bothers me about the whole Ricky Schroeder thing? I used to work at Sam Goody. Okay. Please tell me you don't know what Sam Goody is.
Well, it's not a thing.
Sam Goody used to be, remember back in the olden times when there were record stores and you would have to go and purchase a compact disc or CD? Well, Sam Goody was a store that did that. They were a music store, right?
Sure.
And I used to manage one, and then when I moved to LA, I just transferred and managed the Sam Goody at Universal City Walk. And one day, who comes in my store? Dave Matthews, and who's in tow? Ricky Schroeder. And when I met him that day, he was a super nice guy. And now I find out he's a monster. Okay, sorry, moving on. What if okay, maybe the joke is in the difference between the shows.
like something along the lines of like, if there were more Black TV shows, then maybe those washed up stars would be able to bail.
There's something there.
Right?
Yeah, I see the parallel you're making. But I think when we do this show in December, once we have dates and everything, we'll advertise it here and let you guys know. When we do the show in December, I say we try out a slew of these jokes and then, obviously film it, and then we can play and let our audience see what we were able to do with it. I feel like we should bring the Avenue guys on. We've had them in the things for a while.
Yeah. As we discussed on the front end, we're working with a wonderful nonprofit, Avenues for Justice.
Right there, behind me, on my back.
Yeah. And so we're going to talk to them a little about the work that they're doing, a little bit about the concepts that we're trying to work out into jokes, and just talk a little bit about the social issues that they're addressing in general. So without further ado, give it up for Wes Mensch and Johnny Jarrah.
Yay, Weston and Johnny. So excited to have these guys on.
Hey, everyone. How are you?
Here, give it 1 second.
Give it 1 second.
We're doing a little transfer to the screens, making more screens happen.
Hey, everyone.
There we go.
Hey, everyone.
Wes and Johnny, everybody.
Yay.
Thanks for having
us.
Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Yeah. So I guess if we start out, Wes, Johnny, what do you guys do, or like what is your role in Avenues for Justice? And maybe just a quick, what is the overarching like mission of Avenues for Justice? And
give us like your elevator pitch. Like if we were on an elevator and I'm like, hey, I'm looking to invest in some nonprofits, and you're like, hey, you're in luck. I work for a nonprofit. What would you tell me?
Yeah, so I'll start and introduce myself, and then I'll let Johnny introduce himself and give the pitch. So my name's Wes. I'm the communications and data specialist for Avenues for Justice. I've been with the organization for 3 years now, and I really love working with the youth in our program and working on fundraising and lots of really cool development tasks. So I want to toss it over to Johnny, who's going to tell us a little bit about what AFJ does.
Hey, Johnny.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. So my name is Johnny. I am a core advocate in the Lower East Side. I'm also the activities and volunteers coordinator for Avenues for Justice. And in regards to the elevator pitch, I would tell you that, AFJ is one of the first alternative to incarceration programs in the United States. We began back in the 1970s. We work with you. I'm sorry.
Never mind. Nothing. Go ahead. I was saying in 79. I was reading about you guys earlier. Sorry.
Awesome. So we work with youth from the ages of 13 to 24. The majority of our participants have active court and legal proceedings in the criminal justice system, but we also work with at-risk youth. And our primary goal is to be able to provide a second chance for our participants at freedom, at life in general. And we do this by providing court advocacy, where we try to get them through their legal matters successfully. Every time a young man or young woman has court, we go to court with them. We advocate on their behalf. Wow. We're there every step of the way. We're very hands-on. We also help them by providing them with like school or employment opportunities to be able to succeed in their lives, to build for a better present, but more importantly, a better future.
That's incredible. Do you guys get a lot of support from their parents, or are these at-risk kids that don't really have parental guidance in their life or other adult mentors?
In regards to the parents, I mean, it's always hit or miss. We may have some kids that do have the parental support, which is great, because again, you need a village to be able to get some of these kids through that finish line successfully. Then we have kids who unfortunately don't have, mom or dad in the picture, or if they do, they're not a positive role model, for them, which is tough, because again, if we come across a case like that, the young man or the young woman basically has no one in their life or has never had someone in their life that could actually be able to support them and guide them and
Right.
give them the advice and love that they need. So that's another reason why we as core advocates play a crucial role in their lives, because, you know, like when I'm at our community center, I look at them as little brothers, little sisters, trying to guide them, trying to give them, you know, good advice, but more importantly, show them that I care about them and also
Yeah.
show them love, because that's what they lack.
Yeah. I could have used you guys when I was growing up. Two things really quick. One of these things is not like the other. That's Stephen, who does not have the appropriate background. Two, and more two, and more importantly, I would love if you guys can tell one each, or if there's one collectively that you know of that you want to share together, great. Can we'd love to hear a success story. You don't have to name a name, you know, we can keep anonymity, but you know, this person was in this situation and now they're doing amazing. We would love to hear one of those.
So one success story that pops out to me is a young man that I work with, and I'm still working with him. Been working with him for the last 4 years or so. This young man, at the age of 2, he went into the foster care system. You know, when I met him, he was already within 14 foster homes. You know,
Mm,
which is tough. And he, you know, got caught up in a situation. He, you know, he had a criminal legal matter that fortunately we were able to resolve and get him through it. But the reason why I say he stands out to me is because he had gone through so much, you know, between that and being in psychiatric hospitals, and, you know, having incidents at, you know, like in school and whatnot. And I was always there every step of the way. I remember once, you know, he was at a psych hospital because of an incident that occurred at school. My colleague and I went to go visit him. And the one thing that I'll never forget is the fact that when he saw us, he looked at me and he looked at my colleague and he was like, guys, you guys are the first ones that have come to visit me. And to me, that was just touching. And
yeah,
it just goes to show me that, again, we play these crucial roles in
absolutely.
their lives,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And like, as I mentioned before, we were able to get him through his legal matter successfully. He got what they call the youthful offender status, which is it seals your record. It's more or less like you never committed the crime that you were being
Good.
charged with. And in addition to that, he also graduated from high school.
Yeah.
Now he's looking to go to college and pursue music.
That's beautiful. He does music, you said?
Yes, he loves music. He's very artistic.
That is fantastic. That's fantastic. I love to hear that. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
Yeah,
it's also very you hear time and time again that just having some sort of social structure just
Mhm.
adds so much. It motivates. It does just. The social structure is very important, and just having somebody that is caring for you, somebody that you know that does care, because it is, you know, again, different experience. But where I was growing up, a lot of times the kids that would be, you know, most at risk were very often the ones that their parents weren't there, or you know, abusive family type of situation. So it is really dope that you guys are doing that and adding that sort of social structure for them.
Yeah.
yeah, and I would love to add another success story.
Oh my God,
And
please.
yeah, and this this kid in particular showed the dynamic of someone who anybody could be just teetering on the edge of slipping into the incarceration and criminal justice system, or being totally fine. So this is a young man who's 17 years old and only a freshman in high school. So he hasn't really been going to class. His cousin hit him up and was like, we're gonna go buy a pair of shoes off of this kid in the street. He went with him. And then at the transaction part of this encounter, his cousin tried to steal the shoes, and the AFJ kid, in reaction, helped his cousin out and like punched the kid in the face, and then they both ran. And the cops ended up getting called. They were both found, and because our participant threw a punch and was involved in the robbery. He got tacked on with assault and robbery. So now he's facing prison time for really just kind of childish stuff. And immediately he's brought to our program, and he has 2 supportive parents. The mom would come and cook for the participants once a week. We got him a tutor immediately. He was failing a lot of his classes. He immediately started getting A's. He now has a clothing store that he runs through Instagram. Yeah, he's really good at basketball. Like, he works really hard. He's just a normal kid. And it showed that you don't have to have some sort of, you know, story of a background to get caught up in these legal matters. You really can just, you know, you might not be able to, like Khalif, you might not be able to afford bail, and all of a sudden you're just stuck somewhere that you can't get out of at no fault of your nature or nurture. And then with this kid, you know, all he needed was someone to say, hey man, go to class, like, stop being an idiot, you're smart, like you can do this. And within a year he was just on his feet. It's not that he didn't need us anymore, but he was just a normal kid being himself at that point.
I love that story. I love both of those stories. They're so important.
Can I mention, so everybody watching on Twitch, I think there is a donate button that you'll start seeing in the chat bar. I think, Jared, Comedy Hub, what's up? So please feel free to use that link and give.
And just to reiterate, did I get that statistic or that data right in terms of how much it costs a year? Okay, yeah. So just think about that as you're donating. You're really, you know, even if it's a small amount, it's making a big impact. You know what I mean? That it only costs $5,000 for them to take one child through this program for a year. So think about, you know what I mean? Just think about that math. That's amazing. That's incredibly inexpensive.
And think about the $350,000 that is being paid to incarcerate these kids is also being paid by you, just in a different form. Because that's tax money.
Yep,
that's coming out of the paycheck.
Excellent point. Excellent point. We only have about 9 more minutes, so let's make sure we get that donate button up there. So one thing I wanted to touch on is that a big part of what Stephen and I do is stand-up comedy. So that's our platform. That's our primary medium for getting whatever messages it is that we want to kind of convey to our fan base, our audiences, or whoever we're interfacing with at different shows. And that's why I think both Stephen and I consistently throughout our careers, not just because of this show, we've always shed light on social injustices, just kind of over the course of our career. That's just what we do. That said, we do that out of love and out of a true, genuine passion to fight against social injustice. It's never to make fun or to punch down or to make anyone that's dealing with those circumstances to feel bad. It's always to uplift, it's always to educate, and it's always to add levity to some things that are very deep and painful. But we can use comedy to kind of get through those things. That said, I know you guys were backstage listening to Stephen's wacky, super hilarious take on incarceration. What did you guys think of kind of hear or watching how the sausage is made? I hate that freaking term. I hate it, but I'm gonna use it. What did you guys think about those his joke?
I mean, I don't know.
Let me help direct a little bit. What we were kind of talking about is how the rehabilitation process after you've been incarcerated. What do you guys see as some of the major, what are some of the first conversations that you guys are having with kids that are in your program post-incarceration? And how do you, this is, and we've got a little bit more time than the 9 minutes.
Oh, we do? Okay.
Yeah. What are some of the conversations that you guys are having on the front end once somebody gets out to help them assimilate into a society that really doesn't understand what they've been through?
Mm-hmm.
When a kid usually gets out of jail or prison, it's tough because they've been in there. You don't know what they've gone through, whether that's a short time in jail or whether that's a long time in jail. If it's a long time in jail, they most likely have been institutionalized. And like I said before, that's difficult because again, there's a lot of trauma that these kids go through while they're incarcerated. Another thing is, for me and my personal belief, is how do you expect these kids to actually be able to rehabilitate themselves when they're just behind bars? They're not being productive. While in jail, they're not really obtaining any sort of skills that more or less when you come back into society, you could be able to implement this, and within the jail system, I feel like you're just setting them up for failure because prior to us getting on, I know that you guys were talking about how some of these kids, they go back to doing what they knew and what got them into the criminal justice system. So I think in order to address that problem, you need to equip these kids with proper employment training programs, with proper programs like ours, where we're showing them, like every step of the way, like, hey, you could be able to do this. For example, in Avenues for Justice, we offer an OSHA 30 course for our kids to be able to help them get, the certification and the OSHA 30. If they want to pursue construction, they could be able to do that. We also have a digital literacy course to be able to provide these kids with the proper knowledge and computer skills. It could be basic computer skills, and again, that goes a long way. And once they complete these modules, they get certifications that once they go to employment, interviews and whatnot, they could be able to show like, hey, I have these certifications, I have these skills, and, like it's tough because again, we're talking about young men and women who don't have any type of employment background. So how do you expect them to get back on their feet once they actually are back within society, and this is rough, but like I said before, I think that there needs to be more programs like ours to be able to help out these people that are in need.
Word. And I do appreciate you guys doing that. Again, guys, we've been dropping the donate button. I've been informed we've been dropping the donate button the whole show, but we're watching on Zoom. We don't see the Twitch.
You can't see it.
Guys, any closing words, anything, anybody in New York that can help, can volunteer, look up Avenues for Justice. Do you guys have any closing words or anything that you'd like to say before we take off?
So I'll start and then I'll let Johnny finish with volunteer information.
Cool.
So right now, if you can go to our website, avenuesforjustice.org, follow us on Instagram at Avenues for Justice. You can keep up to date with a lot of the successes that a lot of our clients are having. Despite going into the pandemic the last few months, we have had a lot of successes. As Johnny's laid out, we've instituted a lot of virtual learning and certifications. And so you can follow all that on our Instagram page and our website. And also, if you are if you own a business, if you're a corporation and you're listening, we started a new program called Hire Up during the pandemic, and we're looking for corporations and businesses who are interested in providing mentorships, then internships, and then eventually, if the person is qualified, hiring that person. A lot of times a mentorship or an internship can really be a one-off thing. And we're trying to set our participants up for long-term success and employment at the end of the day. So please go to our website and just shoot us an email if you are interested in that program. I know Johnny, also please donate. As we talked about earlier, $5,000 goes a really long way. So if, 100 people gave $50, or if 1,000 people gave $5, we can get the resources we need to help a kid for an entire year. So please, if the donate link is working, if not, you can go to our website and donate directly through there. We'd really appreciate the support. And then Johnny, do you want to talk about volunteer
Yes.
opportunities?
So I'm going to provide my email address. I know that we're a little short on time. If anyone out there is interested in wanting to volunteer with our organization, we could be able to set up a volunteer assessment. I will dive into the volunteer opportunities and more or less just being able to work with these young men and women, because again, it goes a long way. Volunteers play a crucial role in their lives, being able to help them with tutoring, with homework. Again, it's crucial. My email address is jjara at avenues with an S for justice.org.
Excellent. I have a quick question for both of you guys. You guys have any any like Instagram links, like advertisements that you can send us so we can share? I'd love to share, just share your information if you have like about just kind of like a little video telling about what you do that I could share like on my social medias.
Yeah, so if you're a listener, follow us at Avenues for Justice. But Franqi, I'll definitely send you the videos we have. We recently had a fundraising campaign and we had some promotional materials.
Oh, dope. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll get all that to you.
Excellent. Awesome. Johnny, Weston, you guys are absolutely amazing. I cannot tell you how near and dear to my heart what you guys do is. My brother was arrested for armed robbery years ago when he was like 18, 19 years old. First offense. And what he was armed with was his mouth. They said he incited a riot, and because he incited that riot, that the people around him robbed the place that they were at. And he got 40 years in prison on his first offense. And there was a white gentleman that was being sentenced right before him and got like 3 to 5 years. So we were in the courtroom like, okay, cool. He's not gonna get, that it's not gonna be that bad. And he ended up getting 40 years. He got out in 19 because back then they had like day for day, I think it was called, where every day you were in prison, they would give you a day. Does that make sense? So he got out in, kind of half the time, but still horrific situation. And I remember being, a teenager and going to see my brother in prison. You know what I mean? So what you guys do is needed. It's necessary. It's amazing. Thank you. Avenues for Justice. You heard about them here, but follow them on their pages and donate money and tell your friends to give them money, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Also, nonprofits, we spelt it like PHETS because we're so creative, aren't we? Fun. But nonprofits, we're going to be doing this on Comedy Hub on Tuesdays at 6:30. My name is Stephen Campbell.
I'm Franqi French. We'll be back next week, right?
Yes, if not, yes. Yes. All right. Love you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Give it up one more time for Wes and Johnny. And that's the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Now I don't actually know. Oh, cool. Okay. It just phases on out.
Awesome.